Okay. Anyway, Cara, here we are. We're recording. We made it happen. I appreciate you coming on today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Obviously, I guess we're work colleagues in a kind of indirect way. And I don't know, we just got chatting at work. Turns out you do Ironman and you have some interesting stories. And then it's the classic, like, why don't you come on the podcast? And we actually made it happen.
We did. And here in Manchester, so face to face.
Yeah, I know. And I feel like it's common to say, oh, we should do a podcast on this, or you'd be great on the podcast. And then, doesn't really come to fruition or whatever, but made it happen. And yeah, in person, I do, I don't know, 95% of them probably online at the moment. So it's actually nice to chat to you face to face.
Good to be here. Thank you.
No worries. Now, obviously, we're going to chat primarily about your Ironman journey.
Mm-hmm.
And where I thought kind of makes sense to start is like, what pulled you in about Ironman? Obviously, I feel like the majority of people probably think it's a little bit crazy other than the people who understand it. So What is it, about Ironman that pulled you in?
Yeah, so probably quite a story behind that actually. So first of all, beginning of crazy, like absolutely crazy, but definitely the beginning compared to what some people do. I've always been sporty, I guess. So growing up, I grew up in Switzerland. I played hockey quite competitively. I biked a lot. I skied. Skiing on the doorstep, which was awesome. And then I moved back to England and kind of gave up my sportiness, went to the gym a little bit, had my daughter 15 years ago, or 15 and a half years ago now. And one of my really good friends asked if I wanted to do the Great North Swim, which is a 1.5 kilometre swim. They're still all over the country and great kind of open water sort of starters, I guess. So I started swimming with her and I thought I could swim, that's fine. Realised I could swim, but not really that far.
Yeah.
So started training, met another girl at the pool once and she just said, why don't you come and join the triathlon club, the local triathlon club? So we was like, oh, okay, well, we don't really want to do triathlon, like we're just doing a swim. She was like, that's fine, you can come along and learn how to do open water swimming. So we did that. We went along to a triathlon club locally, Northants Tri, and swam, and very quickly them talking about biking together on a Saturday and the running sessions that they did. My sporting background kind of came back into my competitiveness, I guess, came back into it. And I thought, well, I can bike. I'm going to come on a bike ride with you. Quite hilarious, really. I borrowed a bike from my husband's friend, which was a really old bike with sort of gears on the frame. I had my husband's
that's pretty old. Those
really
ones.
old, really old. Didn't fit me at all. It was like completely the wrong size. I'm there with my husband's like mountain bike, like baggy shorts and like baggy top. His mountain bike helmet with like a little peak. And I'm sure for those of you not into triathlon, that's probably not the look at a tri club. Turned up at Pittsford Reservoir and saw now very good friends of mine, but saw a couple of friends that they're there in their full tri gear, like aero helmets, TT bikes.
Oh,
like,
really? That's
gear.
Serious, yeah.
And I got out of the car, like got this old road bike out of the car, and bless them, they were amazing and really welcoming. And Alex, one of the leaders, took me out, and bless her, there was a 2-lap course and some of the longer cyclists were doing 2 laps. She was like, we need to hurry up, Cara, like they'll be coming round on their second lap soon. And I think I did something like, I think it was about 15 kilometres averaging at like 11 kilometres an hour. Which is pretty slow. And everything just hurt. I got off that bike, my legs were shaking, and I said, oh God, I need to go and get better before I come back. And thankfully this lovely lady, I think her name was Hannah, I can't remember her name now, but she said, well, there's no point in joining a triathlon club if you're not going to come back. So that was kind of, I guess, the community piece that then came in, which has definitely kept me in the sport, because the community within triathlon is huge. But that wasn't obviously my Ironman start. That was just start of riding a bike and getting out. I then eventually did a sprint triathlon. And my husband actually started Ironman way before me. So his first was in 2014. And we was watching DIY SOS. So it's a program in England where they go and rebuild houses for unfortunate people.
Oh, okay.
The family on there, they had a house that the dad had started to extend and make big enough for the family, and then he got terminally ill. So DIY SOS kind of come in and finish it off and make it like amazing.
Wow.
And the dad basically turned around on this program and said, if there's something you want to do, do it, because you may never get the chance. And my husband turned around to me. We just sat on the sofa at home, bearing in mind I'd just done my first sprint triathlon. He had only just done his first sprint triathlon. And he turned around to me and said, I'm going to do an Ironman next year. And I was like, crazy? Like, why would you want to do this? And at this point, we'd just met a few now very close friends of ours, but they were doing Ironman. And, when they explain how far that is, it was just not non-comprehensible. Like, it's just crazy. And so I was like, you sure? Like, do you want to do an Olympic and a half maybe first? He was like, no, doing a full. I'm going to do Bolton next year. And he did.
What time frame was that? Like between when you said that and when the event
Probably
was?
about a year.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, probably about a year.
Yeah,
so, but yeah, bearing in mind, he'd not long had his knee reconstructed, ACL reconstructed. He was doing a little bit of mountain biking, no running. I later on found out that he used to swim quite competitively. When he first came swimming, I was like, I'm going to be faster than you. I've been doing this. And he just like sailed by me. So I guess that's where the competitiveness started. And then he did Ironman for quite a few years. And in 2018, he raced Austria. And I'd been supporting and loving that community and supporting and really getting involved with the community side of it, I guess, and the supporting side. And he finished Austria in 2018, 17? 17. My first one was 2018. 2017. And I just looked at him and said, I'm doing it next year. So the next day we woke up and we went and registered for my 2019 debut at Ironman Austria.
That's cool. It's quite cool to hear that although it may be perceived as an individual sport, really it's like the people you met along the way who are like, hey, do you want to do this? Hey, do you want to like come for a bike, or do you want to come for a swim? And then like your husband saying, I'm going to do an Ironman. And it's like, it's actually, I don't know if you necessarily say team, but community, like definitely a community. Is that something that you think has been a big enabler for you throughout this journey?
Yeah, definitely. So it's a proper family. Like everybody that you meet, no matter whether they're professionals or, really fast or, the, I guess, average athlete like myself, everybody's just there to support each other. And it just real family feeling. And when you go to an Ironman, you're in a town, a city, and everybody there is there for the Ironman almost, unless they're locals. And it's just a real kind of community feel and like family almost that, you just feel part of something. And then on the day, everybody's there for themselves, and like actually your time is you beating yourself and, up against your goals and what you want to achieve. But everybody's there supporting each other. You get to race on the day with the professionals, which is like not many sports you can say you've raced with the top professionals in the sport. Yeah. And at the end of the race, so I'm one of the, not right at the end, but sort of latter finishers. So sort of 13 and a half hours is my personal best at the moment. The professionals are then there giving out medals, and they're there for the last finisher coming over the line and things. So it's a real kind of, from start to finish.
And you can see how like from those people who are at that elite level all the way down to people who are maybe doing their first one. Yeah. It's so cool, that idea that everyone can interact.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. And like for me, like when I'm out on the bike, if it's a 2-lap bike, the professionals come by and you get to like see how fast they're going first of all, and think, wow, like that's insane. But it's a great community.
Yeah. What did your so you decided to do an Ironman. What did your first training block look like, and how did it maybe, I don't know, align with your expectations?
So I guess because I'd seen my husband train for Ironman for quite a few years, I knew what I was letting myself in for, I guess, to a certain extent. I could just about run 10K. I'd done a 10K run before I started Ironman training, but it felt a really long way.
And in a marathon, or in an Ironman, you're running a marathon.
Yeah, at the end, right? Yeah, at the end, which is crazy when you've just not even like just about managed a 10K and sort of die. A
marathon is someone's goal. Like that's what a lot of people work towards. It's like, I'm going to do a marathon this year. It's like, no, I'm going to do a swim and a bike and then a marathon.
And not even like have done a half marathon or a marathon before, I guess. Going straight from sprint to Ironman probably was a big jump, but we did it. And that first training block was a year out. As soon as I'd signed up, I was like, right, next year we're back here, so I need to start training. and I followed the Don Flink. And I think I've said that wrong. My husband kills me every time I say that because I say it wrong every time. But like the training plan that you just kind of buy his book and like follow his training plan. And like I followed that. And the first one that I did, I followed that to the T. Like I was, I guess, super committed straight away. Was lucky enough to have a treadmill and our turbo trainers at the time, not smart turbo trainers, and no Zwift, which now is just a godsend. But yeah, in our sort of converted garage, our little girl was still young enough to be going to bed nice and early, so we'd put her to bed and then go and do some training. But yeah, I was very committed that first year, and it, I guess, slowly built up. But what I liked about that first year was, because the Don Flink plan is very, like, in the week it's exactly the same all the way through, and then at the weekends it kind of ramps. I knew exactly, like, on a Monday I'd have a rest day, on a Tuesday I'd do this. So yeah, and I just followed it and trusted the process, I guess, to get through that training plan. At the end of it, I would be able to finish an Ironman. And I remember actually going out on a bike ride with my husband on one of our longer rides, and I was absolutely destroyed afterwards. And I just said to him, like, wow, how am I going to do a swim, a bike and a run? Like, how am I going to fit all of that in and be able to do that? And he said, well, first of all, trust the process. And the second tip he gave me, which I've kind of carried through, was when you're swimming, you have your swim hat on, swim, don't think about anything else. Then you put your bike hat on, your helmet on, and then bike and think of nothing else. And then you put your running shoes and your cap on, your visor, and then you run and think of nothing else.
It's almost like attacking like what's directly in front of you.
Yeah.
Not, I don't know, catastrophizing or something and trying to think of the whole thing. Is that something that also gets you through like your hard training sessions and training blocks? Like, instead of thinking about it from that macro level, you're just kind of time chunking? Is that something that you do?
Yeah, definitely. So I now have a coach. I've been coached now for 3 years. Just recently changed my coach as well, but very much it's a like block by block basis. And sometimes you have to really remind yourself that, you know, you've just got to get through this week, or you've just got to get through this 4 weeks, then you have another like rest week. Rest week is never really a rest week, though. They should never call it rest week, because it doesn't feel much like a rest week. Yes, it's a little bit less
like
intense,
a deload week or something.
Like, but it's still every day, 2 sessions a day most days. But yeah, it's very much just because actually when you start your training plan, like, it's a long way out. Like, it's quite a long way out if you then think of the race. So it's just chunking it down and taking those wins bit by bit.
And since your first one, what have been some of the biggest barriers you've encountered, whether it's the race or training related? Because you've done 4 now, right? And you got your 5th one.
4 finished, started 5, and then 5th or 6th, however you want to look at it, coming in 7 weeks, Barcelona.
Yeah. So would you say that one that you couldn't finish was one of the biggest barriers you've encountered?
Yeah, possibly. I've had a few, like, out of the 5 that I've done, one of them not finished, which was Vichy, which was super hard, and definitely some key learnings taken from that race, I guess. One, it's really hilly and I'm not built for hills. I'm not sure whether I will go back and do a hilly race at some point just to kind of tick it off. Secondly, you should probably think about bike choices when you're doing a hilly course. So I was on my triathlon bike, and I do wonder whether my road bike would have been a better option. I also had Challenge Roth 8 weeks before, and Vichy wasn't necessarily on the radar until the May of that year, when my best friend passed away, and her husband was racing Vichy, and we said to him that we would join him because they were going together. We would join him and do that race. So the lead up to it was obviously very emotional. Our best friend then never raced, like Cole never raced, and it was just a really hot day. It was 40. We'd had COVID between Roth and Vichy. And so the whole, I've never felt so terrible on a bike ride ever than I felt on that bike ride. And at one point I was taking, like, just trying to take gels to try and find some energy from somewhere. And of course it's not, like, my legs had gone. I think I was pushing 100 watts at one point, like struggling to pedal. So I managed to get back to HQ, so to speak, back to transition. Quite funny actually, because it was a 2-lap bike course and I'd only done 1 lap and then went back in. but then realised that I was actually now first woman going back into transition.
Yeah.
Obviously not, because I
Yeah.
hadn't done the whole bike.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh God, and everybody was cheering, and I'm like, oh my God, no. And then I just thought, I can't just keep on saying no. So I just kind of head down and went for it. All of a sudden I found some energy. It was great. Now I know what it's like to be like first woman. At least I've experienced that, I guess. But I did stop before I got to transition because she hadn't passed me, and I was like, oh, I can't go into transition first. So she did come past me, and she did look a little bit shocked when she saw me, to be fair. Like, hang on a minute, where have you come from? I thought I was first. And she went into transition, and then I said to the guy, like, I'm DNF'd, like, I'm do not finished. And he said, oh, you have to go through transition. So I was like, okay. So I kind of walked through transition, gave them my number, and then the film crew was like filming me, and I was like, no, stop, please stop. So that was quite funny in a way. So yes, it was an awful race, but actually it was quite a good experience in the end. And my husband was actually in the tent. He'd only done one lap as well. So I kind of walked into this empty. So at the end of an Ironman, you have like a big tent where you go to, and there's food, and like where everybody kind of collects their energy back, I guess, and eats some things and until they're ready to go out. And my husband's just sort of sat there on his own. I'm like, oh, you too then. So we actually went and just sat by the run course and had some dinner. So yeah, it was a really hard race, that one, but equally quite a different experience, I guess. And then the second Austria, so we did Austria in, I think it was 2000, I'm trying to think when my first one was now, it's really bad. 2018, I think, was my first one. 2019, I was diagnosed in the January with irritable bowel disease, so a chronic bowel disease, so same family, ulcerative colitis it's called, same family as Crohn's.
Oh, right.
Probably more common than the UC, in the January, and then I raced Austria in the June. Probably wasn't my wisest of choices after being on steroids for sort of a good chunk of that.
They didn't help you. Wrong kind of steroids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not the right ones, unfortunately. So that was a real tough race, but I got through it. I went out. I came out of the swim, looked at my watch, and was like, okay, we'll ignore that. It was like 20 minutes longer than it should be. But how did that happen?
That's got to be wrong.
Well, it was a non-wetsuit swim, so you expect it to be a little bit slower, but 20 minutes is quite a chunk. And then I went out on the bike, and I really suffered. I stopped to check whether my brakes were on. About 30 kilometres into the 180-kilometre bike.
Like you're feeling that much resistance.
They weren't on, so I just carried on cycling, felt terrible, got stung by a bee in my mouth at one point. Like a bee flew into my mouth and stung me. So I then spent the next 2 hours panicking that I was going to die and that somehow this bee would kill me and I should probably stop and tell somebody. And every time I went past a marshal, I was like, I should have stopped and told him, and then just carried on. And luckily though, the first year I did Austria, the bike course was 2 laps, but the same lap. And it's such a the roads are beautiful. If you do Ironman and you've never done Austria, do it. It's the most epic race. And it two laps. But this year it was 2 laps, but 2 different laps. And the first lap was horrible compared to the second lap. So if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have gone out on that second lap. But I had to go and experience that bike course again. So off I went. I got out on the run and just felt terrible and just managed somehow to run and to keep going. And I think my this chronic illness is not going to beat me. Determination got me through that race. The last 10 kilometres I was freezing cold. My husband gave me his jacket. Not supposed to get outside assistance, but when you're looking for a 14.5-hour finish, I don't think they really mind if you get a jacket off of somebody. So I got my husband's jacket and just walked the last sort of 10k. Which was a very long walk, but I got to the finish and then collapsed and was in the medical tent for 2.5 hours and nearly sent to hospital and 2.5 litres of saline being pumped into me. So that was probably my hardest, in the sense that Vichy, yes, it was really hard and I didn't finish, and lessons learned and gutted, because had I finished, I probably could have qualified for the World Championships, but never mind. Yep. That's now a bee in my bonnet that I probably need to go and find at some point. But yeah, Austria that year was probably my most proudest, but also probably the hardest one that I've had to do.
What do you think you learn about yourself by pushing through these challenging things? Does it, I don't know, reaffirm some things that you thought about yourself? Does it maybe teach you things that you didn't know were there unless you did this? What do you learn about yourself by overcoming these things?
That's a really good question. So much. Like so much you learn, and whether that's in the race or actually probably the training more so. So I think the biggest thing I've learned for me is I'm now super proud of like what my body can achieve.
Yeah.
Whereas growing up as a female and probably a broader build female, you know, there's always that I'm not skinny enough, or you know, this is a bit flabby, or
stereotypical,
whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm like, this is me. Like I'm just proud of what my body can achieve, and you know, and I guess that helps with that whole just, well, it doesn't really matter if, you know, I've got a bit of a mum pouch or whatever that may be. Like actually I've, you know, I can do an Ironman, and I can get through quite a lot. And also I think I learned to do things for me, and to like I had a few friends that I probably at the time, they were great friends, don't get me wrong, but like I was doing an awful lot for them, and it was all on my side, ringing them, calling them, things like that. And then all of a sudden, like that, I haven't got time for that in my life because I've got my training to fit in. So I think I've learned to, you know, do things for me and not for everybody else, and make everybody else happy.
Was that something that you struggled with at the start? Because I'm just thinking, as someone who is always there for everyone else, it can be really challenging to then prioritize yourself when other people are maybe trying to get something from you, not in a bad way, but need you there. Like, was that something that was difficult at the start, or are you kind of so busy that you're sort of head down?
I think I was so focused and scared probably for the first one. Scared definitely comes into it. Like I have to do this training, so there's no way I'm going to get round. So I think I was just so focused on achieving that goal that I just kind of did that. And I think I was probably at a stage in my life, maybe an age in my life, am I allowed to bring age into it? I don't know, but I think we go through stages, don't we, in life? And I think I was already at that stage of realising that actually I do quite a lot for everybody else and don't always do it because I want to.
Yeah.
And not that I didn't enjoy doing the things that I did for other people. It's just more like, actually, no, I'm going to be a bit selfish and do things for me. And actually now I'm probably like the other side where like, no, sorry, I haven't got time, I'm training. People probably just don't ask me to do things now because they know that I'm going to be training or whatever. But yeah, so that's probably the biggest thing that I learn. And just that you like the slogan for Ironman is like anything is possible, and like I strongly believe that now. Like if you really want to achieve something, you can do it. Like so many people say to me like, oh, I don't know how you do it, Cara. Like there's no way I could do that. Well, you can. You could if you wanted to, and if that's what you want to do, then you can. You just need to put the hours in and the determination and train.
Do you think one of the main components of that is having a clear goal, and like you're putting the peg in the sand? I'm just thinking, you know, people, they might vaguely want to achieve things, but then when it's only on them to do it, it can be so much easier not to. Whereas like when you have a peg in the sand, like I've got an Ironman in 6 months, you know, if you don't put in the hours, you might not even be able to do it, or you're going to not meet your expectations. So would you say that for people who are maybe, I don't know, questioning whether or not they can do something, or they're wanting to, having the goal is the most important part of that? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. For me anyway, even now, I'm just thinking through lockdown, like I was still training, but nowhere near as much as I could have been with the time being at home all the time. And we've got, you know, a perfect setup in our garage with smart trainers, treadmills, weights. Like we could, you know, we could have, you know, trained really well over lockdown, and actually like we didn't, because we didn't have a race in the diary.
So that training without
really
purpose
hard.
thing is so much harder than knowing
really hard.
You have an event.
Yeah, definitely. For me anyway, there are people out there that have to train every day, and like that's their makeup. But for me, it's definitely I have to have something in the diary to be working towards. And, you know, already I've got Ironman Barcelona in 7 weeks. Like already I'm thinking about like what's next year, like what's that next thing to keep going and to keep on, I guess, getting better, fitter, faster.
I was just thinking, actually, just going back to the, you know, prioritizing yourself a bit. Do you think that having something where you're able to prioritize yourself for a certain chunk of time, ironically, actually makes you better for those other people that need you when you're there.
Yeah, definitely. So it is sometimes, like, I've got a 15-year-old daughter. She's amazing. Like, she's part of my support, I guess, mine and her dad's support network. And I guess she's grown up around Ironman. She was, I think, 5 or 6 when my husband did his first. So for her, it's just kind of normal, which comes with its challenges of her actually. She used to come home from school and be like, "Oh, such and such a teacher's done 5K. Wow, well done."
Oh, no.
It's like,
No,
"Oh,
that's good. That's a
really
good thing.
good.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing. 5K is a
Yeah.
really long way, Amy."
Yeah.
And she, and even like for her, she's, she never thinks that if she goes for a bike ride and does 13K, she wants to do 20, she wants to do 50.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, 50K is a really long way, Amy. And it's that, like, her view of what normal is, and what a run or a bike ride looks like is probably very different to the average 15-year-old.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, sorry, I've completely forgotten what the original question was there, Cam.
Yeah, if you doing something for yourself actually makes you better at helping others.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm most of the time, a much nicer person to be around. Obviously, you do get tired when you're Ironman training.
That's true, yeah.
So there's like a fine balance between that. But I think if there's weeks where I don't train, like I can get quite grumpy. Ask my husband; he'll probably have a better answer for that. But yeah, I think it's part of my routine now. And I think if I just think of work, I'm more organised and focused at work if I'm training than if I'm kind of not. And then I end up working later and doing things, but actually I don't get as much done in those hours, because when I'm training, I almost have to swim in the morning, work, sort of a lunch break, or if I'm working from home, I'll train at lunchtime and then work again. But it's very like when I'm at work and kind of need to get that done. So I think I'm much more kind of focused and ready to go. But yeah, I would say I'm a nicer person to be around when I'm training, for sure.
And like, speaking to that idea of doing things out of necessity, right? I think it is so helpful for your day. Like, if you need to get your swim in, okay, well, I need to get up at this time and then I am starting work at this time. It's almost like removing the options. If you wake up and then like, oh, should I go for a run, or maybe I should snooze? Whereas like, is that something that's beneficial for you, do you think? Like, it's just a no-brainer.
Definitely. Just like my alarm goes off and you have to get up, right? If you want to go for a swim. And there are times when I switch my alarm off and don't go for a swim, but then that stresses me out for the rest of the day, because then I have to fit it in somewhere else.
Exactly.
So my weeks are I have a coach now. Like, he plans out my week sort of Thursday, Friday for the following week. So from like Monday onwards. And I sit over the weekend and kind of plan in, like, because I don't just work 9 till 5. I'm all over the country. My team look after like the whole country, so I can be anywhere really.
Yeah.
And overnight stays. So last night I was staying over in Manchester because I'm in the office up here for a couple of days, and like I have to plan that in. Like, I have to know exactly where that run or where that swim's going to fit in. So it's all in my work diary. Like, and I know exactly what I'm doing when. And often, like at work, we will have meetings that we join, whether that's like an all hands as we call it, like all company like meeting, where it's just a live stream of a meeting. I will like pencil that in as like run time, bike time, and I'll go in the garage.
Yeah, that's a good
and
idea.
Like, I'm training whilst that's happening, or if I've missed one of those meetings and watching a recording back, like I'll fit that in like around my training. So then I actually get a lunch break, which is quite nice, and actually can sit down and eat my lunch.
It's so interesting to see how your sport makes you more productive in other areas of your life, because it's a topic I like to talk about, and I feel like for the most part, exercising makes you more productive, or for want of a better word, a better person in other areas of your life. But the key thing is that, and I've chatted to a few people about this, is that you actually have to apply the learnings. Like, it actually has to cross over. Like, getting up and going for a swim doesn't mean that you can get to work early, or it doesn't mean you can turn up to this thing for work when you don't necessarily have to.
Yeah.
But it sounds like in your instance, like the the crossover is quite apparent. Like it definitely makes you a more productive person at work as well.
And whilst training as well, depending what intervals I've got to do, like the really hard intervals, I'm probably not doing too much thinking other than ouch, this really hurts.
Yeah.
But actually a lot of my training time is also like thinking time. So even though I'm not working, like I am, like I'm still thinking about what needs to be done. So I have that break, like think things through, and then the afternoon I'm like, right, this is what I need to do. And I can get onto those jobs and be a bit more focused and like clear mind rather than just like muddling through the day.
Yeah, and especially because we spend so much time on screens and stuff now, we're distracted most of the time and then, you know, it was the classic, you know, you come up with your best ideas when you're in the shower or something.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because you're giving your brain a break. You're not stimulating it with your phone or with a screen. And I think that's a huge benefit from like running or biking, as long as it's not too technical or crazy.
Yeah.
Your mind can kind of wander
Definitely.
and look for solutions in other areas as well.
It's just remembering them afterwards that's a challenge.
True. Need to like note
the
them
best
down,
ideas
like a
in the
voice
world,
note.
but can't actually remember what they are.
What was that idea?
Yeah, voice note is my favourite friend when I'm biking or running and an idea comes into my head because like, yeah, I've not voice memoed it before and then got home and thought, I had a great idea.
Yeah.
It's gone. I have no idea what it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, definitely like huge, you know, whether that's work, whether that's like family stuff, like there's a huge part of training that gives me my sense of peace, I guess, and like clears my mind to, you know, plan and think of things that I probably wouldn't have done if I was just busy.
Yeah. And I'm not a parent, so I can't really talk, but you hear a lot of parents talking about how obviously busy they are with kids and work and all the rest of it. And you've got that stuff, but then you've also got Ironman in the mix as well. So maybe for the parents out there or people who also consider themselves busy, how do you manage your time with all those things?
With a great support network, I guess. So, yeah, we've got a daughter. She's now 15. She's actually homeschooled on an online school because she's also autistic and ADHD. So that comes with its challenges, but also its benefits, I guess, that she is at home all the time.
Yeah,
so
true.
like we don't have the school pickup and the school drop off and things like that. Planning again, I guess, and like finding the time by getting up early. Like we're up way before, like at the weekends, we often have done our 6-hour bike and come home and woken Amy up. Like, like she's 15 now, so she sleeps well during the mornings. Like she's probably not awake until lunchtime at the weekends. So, you know, quite often she's only just up or we're waking her up when we get back. So I guess it is early. Being committed enough on what you want to achieve to find that time. And for us, that's getting up early and getting it done. And yes, some mornings I want to lie in, but hey, if I have a lie in, I feel just as rubbish when I wake up, and probably worse because I've then not done my training and not felt good after that endorphin hit. So yeah, very much a good community around us. AIM is brilliant. Our daughter has just been our, I guess, number one supporter throughout. I've got some brilliant pictures of her when she was younger. Her dad's first Ironman, she was so high on sugar from all the sweets that she ate that we have pictures of her like completely like and then the next minute she's like fast asleep on me and then she's wired again and then fast asleep again. That was quite crazy. And then throughout she's kind of been a supporter, I guess, so she's enjoyed it as well. And then just fitting it around like when she was younger bedtime, so she'd go to bed at 7 and then we'll go and train or get up really early. And I guess it's me and my husband, because we both do it as well, we kind of tag team, which it made it more difficult when she was younger, whereas now she's a bit older, we can go out and like I say, she's still asleep and we're back from our 6-hour bike ride and ready to eat lunch sort of thing. But yeah, it's tough fitting it all in, but you can fit it in if you want to, I guess. Like it's a matter of, I guess, will and if you want to. And we don't watch, like, you know, often friends or like my team be like, oh, are you watching this series? Or no, no, not at all. And if I do, it'll be while I'm on the bike or running sort of thing on the TV in the garage. But no, so it's just, it is tough, but just a support network, I guess, we've got around us, and an awesome daughter that allows us to do it and doesn't mind too much that mum and dad spend a lot of time biking and running.
Yeah, I heard this thing the other day and it reminded you of that. it's like Nick Beer. I don't know. He's like a hybrid athlete dude I follow, but he said, like make the time so you don't have to find the time.
Yeah.
And that's that whole idea of if you get your training done in the morning, then whatever happens in the day, it doesn't matter. It's not going to push out your training
100%.
time.
Yeah, and 100%. Like if I don't get up for that swim, like all day I'm thinking about like when am I going to fit in my swim? When am I going to fit in my run? Because quite often there'll be a swim and a run or a bike. So it's like swim in the morning, run or bike at lunchtime if I can, like if I'm working from home. If not, as soon as I get in from work, like it's the first thing I do. And then I've got the rest of the time. But if I can, the weekends as well, like get up, get it done. And then you've got the rest of the day to do normal family stuff.
Yeah. And you can see how like, you're inspiring your daughter by what the stuff
Hopefully.
you do. You know, and I guess there's so many different ways you can live life, but you doing the thing that you do, you might be away from her and sacrificing that time in that way, but it's for a positive reason. And I'm sure you're influencing her, even her saying like, she only went for a 5K run, you know, like it shows that she's into it. It could be a positive cycle where the people who look up to you are inspired to follow in those footsteps as well.
Yeah, definitely. She also inspires me though, like with her, so bless her, she suffered from anxiety and didn't leave the house for about 3 years following COVID, and she's just started like biking, and like she came flying past me up this hill. I was like, hang on a minute, like what? And it was just before Roth actually, and I was struggling with my training a little bit at the time, and I was like I was going steady up the hill, but she then kept flying by me, and I couldn't catch, like I couldn't get on her wheel and catch her. I was like, and we got to the top and we had a little rest, and I was like, that's it. And me and my husband then went for a slightly longer bike ride after we'd taken her out for a bit. And I was like, every hill, he was like, you're flying. I'm like, I'm inspired by our daughter. If she can fly up those hills, so can I. And actually, I guess that got me through Roth as well this year, because we had COVID 4 weeks before, and about 30K into the run. It was pretty tough, that last little bit. Very emotional. A few tears happened walking through Roth with my cup of Red Bull in my hand, shaking and bawling my eyes out like a baby. And Amy, she inspired me. That bike ride that we did with her was the thing that inspired me then to like, I keep running, Cara. Like if Amy can, do that after not being on a bike for how many years, like you can finish this marathon. So yeah, it goes both ways, I guess.
And isn't it interesting that if you didn't choose to pursue this, you wouldn't be able to share those kind of moments? And it's almost like a family thing too. I could see how it would bring even you and your husband closer, because you're not just sitting on the couch all evening watching TV, you're actually out doing stuff and like spending quality time. Yeah.
Sometimes we get a bit competitive.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's great. Like, and I guess we forget that that's not normal. Like that, like we spend, well, and often we'll go out training together, and like he's a faster biker than me, so he'll go off and like do his bike, but we'll do like loops, so we kind of see each other every now and then and give each other a wave. But we still go out together and we'll warm up together, and then he'll go off and do his thing and I'll go off and do my thing. And running, we're probably similar runners. It's kind of one of them running. If I'm having a good day, I'll go ahead, and if he's having a good day, he'll go ahead. So it varies, and sometimes we run together. But yeah, it's great that we've got that and we can do that together. I think it's also great that we understand the time that it takes, like when we're tired, what that looks like, but also, just kind of supporting each other through those tough times. And like normally we don't have good times together. He'll be having a really good training block and I'll be really struggling, and then vice versa, which is a bit of a shame, but actually in a way I guess good.
Probably would. If you're both having a bad training block, I don't know.
Yeah, true, actually. Yeah, it's probably not a good thing. The good would be good, the highs would be good, but the lows would be really low, wouldn't they? But then also we train really hard and we also rest really hard. So we then like chill out together and spend a lot of time together. So yeah, I guess it is good.
Yeah, I heard on a triathlon podcast, I don't know if the stat is true, but it's something like triathlon or Ironman like athletes have the highest number of divorce or breakup rates. I haven't researched that, so don't quote me, but I heard it on a podcast. And I could imagine, because the amount of, if you didn't do it together, the amount of hours that you just have to be out on the bike or on the road or whatever.
Yeah.
You can imagine that could be true.
Yeah. So I guess, definitely, because I guess like we do it together. So I guess that's a different, and there's not many couples, like if I think of all of our friends in the tri clubs and like wider community that we know, there's not many that both husband and wife do it. Sometimes, like my best friend Emma, who passed away, bless her, she was our number one supporter, but she had lupus, so she could never ever do an Ironman. She would have loved to have done an Ironman, but there's just no way that she could have. Like, she probably loved it more than what Cole, her husband or a widow now, loved it. And us, she was like number one supporter. She would organise us, she'll book the hotels, and it worked really well because she was as invested in Ironman as he was, and all of us, but from a different side, and it worked really well. But actually, lots of times we hear, just how much it costs to buy new bikes and things.
Yeah.
Little bit crazy.
Yeah.
A guy at the Tri Club years ago, and I won't mention any names just in case. I could get a divorce here, couldn't I? But he, I was nice new bike. He, turned up to training on a new Trek. I think it was a Madone at the time, and he had a red Planet X before that, and he was like, still red. And I was like, what? And he was like, bought the same colours, and the wife doesn't know that.
Really?
A new bike, and I'm like, oh my goodness, seriously. But I guess that is like how, you could see that getting out of control, right?
Yeah.
When, the wife doesn't want you to buy a £8,000 bike.
Yeah.
Or
that
whatever.
goes beyond the sport. That's like how you're managing your finances.
Yeah, exactly. But then also the time, right? The time commitment, like away from family, like not spending time doing things together, like it could definitely, bring tension, I guess, to a marriage, definitely. Yeah, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, maybe I should research that. But I heard it on a podcast, so it must be true, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. When it comes to people who are interested in the sport and wanting to get into it, what is your advice that you would give them on how to have a positive experience getting into Ironman?
Join a club. Like, I guess, first of all, like getting into triathlon, I guess we step back. Like, join a club. I think the community is huge in triathlon, and there's so many clubs around. On British Triathlon, like you'll go and find a local club and like join a club, and in clubs there'll be all abilities from newcomers to Ironman athletes that are 9-hour athletes. You'll have a complete mix of abilities, and I think that can be a really scary thing to do, because I think when you think of a triathlon club, you just think of like the elite, right?
Yeah.
And
I'm not good enough to join a triathlon club. Yeah,
exactly. When actually my experience was perfect, right? Like I was useless on a bike and very unfit, and like actually that community pulled me in, and I'm now doing Ironman. So I think join a triathlon club would be definitely a huge part of that. And I think one of the best things I did my first 2 Ironmans without a coach, and it worked okay, but having a coach is definitely like one of the best investments I've made in triathlon, just to not have to think too much about what that training looks like and just do it. They'll have a bigger holistic view as well, whereas if I have a really bad training session, like it's the end of the world, and actually I've had like 3 great weeks leading up to that really bad training session. And a very wise man, my old coach, said to me, like, a third of the time you'll feel great, a third of the time like it'll be hard, and then a third of the time you'll feel terrible. Like, so actually, like it's seeing that bigger view of how that training's going, and yes, you might have a really bad day or a really bad week, but actually that's quite a small element of the whole
and
9 months leading up to it.
If you have those expectations, okay, yep, I don't feel good, but this is a part of the plan.
Yeah.
Like, this is inevitable. Yeah. So you have the expectations set from the beginning. Yeah. And like the coach, who's obviously much more experienced than the athlete, is able to provide that kind of insight.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. And just look at it from a different perspective, I guess, and different numbers. But yeah, number one, definitely join a club, like without a doubt. If you're getting into triathlon, that would be my number one thing. And just do it. If you want to do it, just do it. Because there's so many things that can stop us from doing things. And actually, like, I don't think I've ever met a triathlete that is a horrible person. Yeah. Like, and I guess that comes down to that maybe getting all of their energy out on running, swimming and biking, right? And really welcoming, and whatever level they're at, they'll still be super welcoming to the new people, because we really cherish that community within our sport and want to keep that going. So yeah.
And I could imagine the amount of like physical activity you do. You get so many positive, emotions and hormones, like thinking dopamine and all that kind of stuff. You'd get so much of that from overcoming challenging things consistently.
Yeah,
like I would say almost every training session is challenging to a varying degree.
Yeah, definitely. Like if I see easy run on my plan, I'm like, no run is easy. That should not be called an easy run. Like this morning I had a 50-minute sort of zone 1 easy run, but like still running.
Yeah. Like, I'm still not sleeping in.
Yeah, exactly. Still not having a sleep. But it just builds resilience as well. Like I think everybody within a community is quite a resilient personality then, and like you say, and those dopamines make people happy. So they're normally quite nice people. So they'll be super welcoming to any newbies.
Yeah, I was listening to a Huberman podcast, the neuroscientist, and he was talking about an area in your brain called the AMCC, which is a large contributing part to how well you can handle challenge. And it grows and it shrinks depending on how much challenge you overcome. So the implication from that is that if you consistently doing hard things, then your capacity to overcome and push through hard things grows. Whereas like the reverse is true. So if you're not often having to do challenging things or push through or face resistance, that part of your brain shrinks. So your capacity to be able to do it also decreases as well.
Interesting, yeah.
Which is why I reckon like Ironman, like Iron Woman, is it you say that?
Yeah.
I think it's funny how it's Ironman.
It's a brand, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a brand. Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe
really.
endurance athletes.
Yeah,
that's a better term.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
That's why I think endurance athletes have this capacity in other areas of their life as well, whether it's like work or family or business or whatever, to face into resistance a bit more maybe.
Yeah, I guess back to that first, like one of the first questions you asked about, like how it's changed things. Like I think you've probably knocked nail on the head there, so to speak, like that. Like at work, I'm more likely now to take on bigger challenges and be like, well, I can do an Ironman. I can do that, right?
Yeah.
And just kind of take that, like almost take the bull by its horns and just kind of go for it and not be afraid to fail, I guess, to a certain extent. Like just give it a go.
Yeah, I could see how it would sort of reaffirm your identity of someone who is able to push through things. I have done this, therefore I have the data and I know that I can do it. So yeah, it's not a bike ride, it's a task at work, but I am someone who can overcome things and push through challenging things.
And set long-term goals as well. And it happens slowly. Like it doesn't overnight, you could do an Ironman. Like you have to build up to that. And I guess that's reaffirmed that in my mind, that like sometimes, and you have to monitor that progress, because if it's only small progress, you don't recognize it always. So actually monitoring it and knowing what that end goal is, like I think I've probably got better at that as well.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Through doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think in terms of your progress and your improvements, what have been some of the biggest tools or enablers to you making, I was thinking physical progress, but I guess even psychological progress like that? Like what have been some of the most useful tools for you to progress from your first Ironman to where you are now?
Just building that resilience and consistency, I guess. Like that's like a huge part of it, like consistent. Like if you go out of your comfort zone and try new things and keep going at it, like you will get better at that. So I guess building that resilience and determination to just keep going, and the ability to remember what the goal is, like step back sometimes and remember why you do. And there are days and mornings where I'm like, I don't really know why I do this anymore. Like, what am I doing? Like
sitting on your bed,
exactly,
looking at your shoes,
or standing by poolside, just like staring at people, like going up and down, thinking you should probably get in now, Cara. Like now would be a good time to put your goggles on and get in the pool. But sometimes question is life. But I think just building that internal kind of resilience and ability to know that you can get through, and listening to your body as well. Like, it's a huge part. Like, sometimes there are, and like, I'm a certain age lady now, so perimenopause is like on the horizon, definitely, and which isn't fun always. And actually there are days where I just can't, like, and actually making that okay to have a rest day and start again the next day, but always like start again the next day and get back on track and do it. And then the support of the people around me has been huge.
Yeah, it's interesting as an athlete, the discipline factor isn't really, or isn't often, you completing or doing the session. Often it's actually more so having the discipline to know when you shouldn't do the session, right? Like when you've done the thing for years, it's almost like not even a question of whether or not you're going to do the session. That's where it's like, okay, no, this, like today I actually need to be disciplined, and it's okay to have a rest day.
Yeah, definitely. And I actually learned that this weekend just gone, actually. Since Roth, I've been in my HRV, so like overnight heart rate variance. I'm not
heart rate variability.
I'm sure that's it. Yeah. I'm sure there's lots of people out there that know far more about it than me. But I've literally been in amber or red since Roth, which has been like 4-5 weeks now.
Really?
With a couple of green nights, and it was really kind of getting to me. And I was 7 days in red last week. So on Sunday, I had a 3-hour ride planned. I had a rest day on Friday, but ended up doing 7 hours of gardening. Not a good idea.
Damn.
Like, I just obviously had the energy and the will to do my front garden, and it looks amazing now, but I didn't actually rest, which was silly. So on Sunday, I just couldn't, like, there's no way I could have. I sat on my sofa and did nothing, and actually feeling much better this week and ready to go. So actually, like, yes, I could have pushed myself and gone and done that 3-hour bike ride and felt terrible, but I probably still would be feeling terrible now. Whereas, you know, I decided not to with my coach. And again, like, having a coach, like, you can, like, what do you think? Like, what should I do? And I'm feeling much better this week, and hopefully focus for Barcelona, because it's only 7 weeks. So I've only got a 5-week block and then 2 weeks taper, and
that's so exciting. It's funny you bring up the HRV. I was listening to a Rich Roll podcast the other day, and he was chatting to an ultraman, I forget his name, but they were talking about HRV, and they said, like, back in the day when you couldn't measure HRV, you just kept training basically until you couldn't anymore. Whereas now they use HRV as one of their measures that they use to know if and when they should rest. Because it's like, again, like, I don't know much about it either. I've done a bit of research, but it's basically shows how recovered you are, right? Like, to put it as simply as you can. So yeah, like the ultramen, that's part of their sort of, I don't know, variables or measures that they use.
Oh, there's so much data now, isn't there? Like, just in life in general, but like training, if I think about when I first started training, like, we didn't have a smart trainer. It was just like a trainer. We didn't have power meters.
Yeah.
And they were probably a thing back, like, when I first started, but like when I first started, definitely not. And actually now you've got power meter, you've got like your HRV, and sometimes that can be quite overwhelming, I guess, as well. Like,
when your Garmin tells you you're like unproductive, you're like, but I'm going for a run, man.
Garmin's always telling me and I'm unproductive and overtrained always, every day. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, I think listening to your body is huge. Like, that's a huge part of it. But yeah, I want to see green again.
Yeah. Wow, that's wild. Was it? I can't remember, but it was something like, if you're unbalanced for a few weeks, you should go and like get an ECG or something, or like go like chat to someone about it. I don't know.
Maybe
like,
I need to go and see a doctor.
Yeah, I can't remember the time frame, but
let me know.
I mean, yeah, given the amount of training you do, I could imagine that your body is in like a not really well recovered state quite consistently. Maybe if you weren't training and you were in red all the time, maybe that would be more to worry about.
I think red's still not great, but I guess I only did Roth 5 weeks ago, challenge Roth.
Yeah.
It was a tough end, and I probably went back to training a bit too quick because we were still on holiday and quite fancied a 4-hour bike and like going for a run. So maybe I like should have listened to my coach a bit more and rested a bit longer.
Nah.
Straight back into it.
What's your average sleep score?
I do, but I couldn't tell you what my average is. It's normally pretty good. Like, I sleep pretty well. So I'm normally between sort of 7 to like 8.5 hours.
Yeah.
I try and get 8 hours, but like it doesn't always allow. I normally have a pretty good sleep, so like not amazing, but it's okay.
Do you have sleep score on your Garmin?
I do.
What is it, do you think? 80s?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
okay,
like late
cool.
70s, mid 80s,
Yeah.
I'd say.
I just love asking people about their sleep
Yeah.
score. There's like
Yeah.
people at work, like someone on my team, I won't name him because I won't call him out, but it was funny anyway. His average is like in the 40s or 50s.
Same as my husband's.
Really?
Yeah.
And do you think it's legit, or do you think the Garmin's like malfunctioning?
Yeah, no, he doesn't sleep.
Yeah.
Like every time, if I wake up in the night, he'll be awake, or he's like
Whoa.
constantly like wriggling, and
Yeah.
he's not a good sleeper at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, his sleep score is really bad, whereas mine's like he's like pretty good, and that will cause our divorce. Like me just like fast asleep next to him and him awake all night.
Yeah.
It's like, oh God, Cara, like he says, like he spends hours just watching me sleep some nights. I'm like, okay, that's a bit
Well,
weird.
that's cute. yeah.
But yeah, he really struggles. Yeah, he's the same. Yeah. So
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah. So no, I'm not amazing, but good. Like, I get a good sleep normally.
Because I was just thinking that would help with getting your HRV back in balance.
Yeah.
That's good though.
Yeah, I probably haven't got into the routine coming back from Roth. I probably haven't got the routine of getting to bed early enough to then get up early. So I'm probably sort of half an hour later going to bed still. So that's like half an hour extra sleep, isn't it?
Yeah,
So.
it's true. So maybe before we wrap it up, we talk about your upcoming race. You already mentioned it, Barcelona. How are you feeling? What are your expectations coming into this one, maybe?
How am I feeling? I'm feeling like, what the hell am I doing? I think with like the way I've been feeling, and I guess my HRV, and like just feeling quite broken since Challenge Roth, I've not got my focus and determination back yet. Slowly starting to feel glimmers. So like this morning on my like easy run, my zone 1 run, I actually felt good and focused, which was probably the first time I've really not just been like, oh God, when's this ending? Since I've been back. So I'm excited, but a little bit nervous that I just need to get that focus back. But excited to it's a very flat course, a fast course.
Nice.
So hopefully I'll get another PB, so to speak. Obviously it won't be a proper PB because it'll be a different course, but like still, I'll take it. Yeah, excited. Looking forward to the weekend away. So it's just me and my husband going as well, which will be nice. Nice romantic
nice
weekend away doing an Ironman. But yeah, super excited. But yeah, just need to get that focus back.
Yeah. What do you think, other than the focus, could be some of the biggest challenges? You're saying it is like 25 degrees or something? Do you think the heat would play into it there, or?
No, hopefully not. So it's normally around 25 degrees, which would actually be quite nice racing. Like all the races I've done, it's been sort of 25 plus.
Nice.
So
yeah.
Quite used to that. Albeit we've not had too warmer weather here in the UK. So sometimes
surprisingly, right?
Yeah, it's been raining quite a lot.
Yeah.
And the sea swim. It's the sea swim.
Yeah.
Not done a sea swim before. Don't really like the sea, so I'm not really sure what I was thinking.
What do you think the swell is going to be like? Do they get many waves there, or?
So it varies.
Yeah.
Some years it's quite calm, and then other years it's quite swelly. So I'm
calm.
really hoping for a calm one. Because I like even on the lake, I can sometimes get a little bit travel sick when I'm swimming if it's a bit so in the sea. I'm not really sure what I was thinking booking a sea swim, but I guess it scares me. I don't like the sea, but actually it's something that like I can tick off and
but you're doing it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll get round somehow. So yes, that's probably the only challenge. The bike course is dead flat, so the challenge with that is it's just a constant, like you've got to keep pedaling, whereas like Austria and Challenge Roth are both like angulating courses. They'll say it's actually quite some good hills, but there's also lots of nice downhills, so you get a rest, whereas Barcelona is just 180 kilometers of biking and keeping a average sort of power, but it's also a very fast course, so yeah, we'll see. I'm excited for that.
Cool. And then anything beyond that, or is that at this stage?
Well, we've booked the accommodation for Ironman Austria next year, so does
Oh,
that
nice.
count?
Yeah, I guess so. You're somewhat committed.
We're
You're
not-
either
yeah.
going on holiday or you're going to...
Yeah. So the accommodation's booked. It is a free cancellation accommodation.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
But yeah, when I started with my new coach, the team, quite a few of his coached athletes, about 10, 12 of them are doing Ironman Austria. And actually, it was the one reason why I nearly didn't go with him, because we love Austria so much. I mean, we've done it, 5 times? I've raced it twice. My husband's raced it 5 times.
Wow.
It's such a beautiful location for a holiday as well. And it nearly stopped me from going with Tom as my coach, because I was like, oh, well, if you guys are doing it, that means I have to. And I was going to have a year off Ironman next year and maybe do some half, like 70.3s, half Ironmans. But yeah, Austria's pretty much on the cards. We just haven't committed and booked the race yet, but we know we're doing it.
That's cool.
Yeah, so Austria next June, I guess, will be the next thing.
Cool. And if anyone wants to follow your journey, do you post your stuff anywhere? I don't follow you on any socials or anything. Do you share your stuff?
Yeah, kind of. So it is a locked Instagram account, but as long as you look okay,
like a real person,
then I'll accept.
Yeah.
And definitely, obviously, if it's like triathlon related.
Yeah.
But it's just at it's Cara Brooks, at Cara Brooks, I think, or at Cara Brooks. So
that's a nice
dead simple,
Instagram
nice
handle.
and just my name. And I do post a little bit, but happy to have more followers.
Cool. Yeah, why not? Oh well, I appreciate your time today, Cara.
Thank you.
That was awesome. That was a really good chat.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
No worries.